friends, and welcome to another episode of Booked, a place to explore the realms of creativity. I'm joined today by Eric Montgomery. Thank you so much for joining me. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited. So you recently have released a collection of poetry and short stories. So this is called Spectre Noir: Shadows in the Light. So I read this fairly recently. It was a couple of weeks maybe after you released it. I loved it. I love the short sort of fiction format. I've never been the sort of person that enjoys reading poetry, but you've got such a wide range of structure, and I don't know, the rhythms are very different, and you don't stick to the same format every time. So I found it really entertaining. Your work is filled with a lot of emotion and a lot of vulnerability. Is it something that you've
Yep.
always sort of used writing for, or is it something that you use as inspiration? How does that play into your creativity?
Well, I'm happy you enjoyed the book. That's exciting. Um,
Yeah, I did.
Writing for me has always been therapy, first and
Mhm.
foremost. I mean, I've been writing all my life. Childhood and life for me was not easy. And writing was that one place I could go. And even before reading, although I've been reading, you're a writer, you should be a voracious reader. But
Mhm.
um, writing was always therapy. I could get away. The mind was going a million miles an hour, and I could write, and I felt good about it. Felt good afterwards, I should say.
Mhm.
And as I got older, it just got more interesting as the brain develops.
Mhm.
Um, and Especially as I got older, I would just have these, stories and things in my mind, and for a long time, I wouldn't get it out of my head, and it would just mess with me later because there's just more and more stuff in my head. So I just start writing it down, whether it's poetry, which is my first love, or
Mhm.
short stories. Because short stories are as far as my brain can develop something. Like, "Yeah, okay, that's it. That's as far as I can see that guy running. Okay, that's it. Although I am working on something, an idea that I hope I can develop into something much longer. But that's
Mm.
who knows what's going to happen with that. But
Mm.
yeah. So it's therapy first and foremost. It just works well. I kind of like in business, I followed this tip years ago from a mentor of when you have something in your mind, write it down, get it out of your
Mm.
mind, and then go do what you got to do, and you can always come back, and then you can process that thought. So it's the
Mhm.
same stuff with writing when my poetry and such is just write it, get it out of my head, and then I mean, afterward, I feel, oh, that's great. That's out of me. Let's go do something else now.
Mhm.
So it's fun.
So does it present itself as like a build up of pressure or a backlog of information that you need to sort of release? Is that what you're saying?
A backlog makes sense. I mean, if I
Mhm.
don't, if I have like an idea of something, whatever that is, and I'm
Mhm.
constantly taking notes all day long, I think, ooh, that'd be good. I write it down. Um, but if I don't get it out, um, I do find that my brain tends to start like tapping on my forehead, saying, dude, I'm getting full in here. Get that stuff out of here. So I got to write. I got to get it out. Now I write every morning. I get up every morning. I make my coffee. I write for at least a couple of hours, whether it's a poem.
Mhm.
I do a lot of word prompts. I love word prompts. So I do
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. Sometimes it carries over from the night before and then I finish it in the morning. Um,
Mhm.
or if it's a story idea, I have a folder called Bits, BITS, where I put all my little nuggets of hopefully good ideas. And
Mhm.
if I'm not working on something specific in the morning, then I grab that and I just go on it. But yeah, it's if I don't get it
Mhm.
out of the head, then it's just it's a war in here, and I got to get it out. So
Interesting. That's fascinating because I've spoken to through doing this podcast and setting up the website. I've been in contact with lots of different writers, and that is a very common theme in creative people. Is this you can't help but be creative, and you have to do something with it, otherwise, it's uncomfortable in some capacity. So it's really interesting how similar everyone is, even though you all have a
yeah,
different
yeah.
voice.
Even
So
my
you said that
photography is the
poetry's
same way. If I see something, like if my creative eye
Hmm.
sees something, but I don't act on it and I continue to drive on or walk away or whatever,
Mm.
my brain will be like, dude, go back. We have to capture that.
How
It's very
funny.
funny. So
Yeah. But I suppose with photography, you get very little chance to get that picture. And with writing, you get very little chance to get that idea before it either floats away or becomes something different, right?
uh, that's a great way to think about it. Yeah, it's definitely the same thing. I mean,
Mm.
with photography, it's you blink and that moment's gone, whatever moment it was. And
Mm.
I'm not one of those photographers that sits and waits for the right moment. I just walk and for whatever,
Mm.
when it happens, it happens. I capture it. I call it drive-by shooting. Um, and writing's kind of the same way. I mean,
Uh-huh.
I can sit on an idea. I've done this before where I think it's a good, like I have it written out. Let me think it through. It's usually the shower brainstorms. Ooh, this is a good idea.
Mm.
And then I think on it or don't think on it. And then when I get down to write it, whatever it was blew up into something really stupid.
Hmm.
Or just doesn't, filters away and doesn't happen. Which I kind of
Mm.
kick myself. I'm like, oh, it was a good idea then. But you gotta
Missed
you
my
gotta jump on
chance.
it and write it down when you have the chance, in my opinion.
Hmm. I think it's really good advice actually because I if I don't, I now have like notebooks around my house, and I have my phone on me constantly, which is an illness, I think, to have it attached to me as a body part, which is something I hate, but I do it anyway. But I now have to. Sometimes I have to stop somebody from talking and say, "Wait a second, I have to write this down because if I don't, I'll forget it." And I'll rack my brain and get frustrated because I would have lost like a key component to it, and it's gone, it's lost
Yeah.
forever because my brain has holes in it. Um, so you said that poetry is your first love, or the
Yep.
thing that you're most passionate about with writing. I've never written poetry before. Well, that's a lie. I've wrote haikus about farts, but uh, does it is it the same as writing a story like in the traditional format where you have an idea and then you start writing down the ideas and it develops into something, or does it come out like breathing for you?
Regardless of what I'm writing, poetry, short story,
Hmm.
business copy, it doesn't matter what I'm writing. To me, it comes out like a fire hose. It just comes out. And I've
Mm-hmm.
learned, for me, I was kind of trained by a retired newspaper editor, longtime friend, he's
Hmm.
really coached me throughout my adult life, or did coach me throughout my adult life on how to
Hmm.
write. Um, what a masterclass! But
Mm.
he was always like, you put some out and then you edit it, and you put some out, and I'm like, no, I just dump. So when I write, I just, no matter what it is, I get the idea out of my head, write it
Mm.
down, and
Mm.
then I might take a couple of minutes, could be 5 if I end up doom scrolling, but I take a few minutes and then I go back to it and then I
Mm.
work it like clay. Like, okay,
Yeah.
let's mold this, let's mold that. When it's poetry, um, it and it depends on what I'm writing. I have this fascination with the different forms or formats of poetry. There's just so many of them.
Mm.
Excuse me. I find sites all over the net that are listing the different formats. I have one that I saved. It's like 160 different formats of poetry. So, for personal development, I've been trying to write in those different formats, which is really, really hard,
Mm.
but very rewarding when you get it right.
Mm.
Who's to say it's right? But so I'll go back and just edit. And lately, my writing for poetry is to remove the excess words because I just find them junky and
Mm.
garbage. Does and ors and ands and various things. I just get rid of those
Mm.
and only leave the key words that paint the image that you're trying to communicate.
Mm.
Which really is the basis of poetry in a nutshell.
Mm.
And storytelling, but poetry really gets concise about it. So um, and I love it. So, I mean, I always figure when I read my poems back, I read almost everything I read. I read aloud because I like how it sounds and it helps
Mhm.
practice pronunciation. But I always figure when I read my stuff back, if I go, "Ooh, that's a good line," then I got it. So,
Good. Do you find that you're like overly critical of yourself, or do you feel confident in yourself as a writer?
um, I don't know so much critical. I mean, when I feel that it's good, I'm
Hmm.
satisfied and I'll put it out. But then I'm always kind of there's always that little, and this is probably the self doubt issues that I deal with. But I always worry that someone's going to come back and saying, "Well, that's a stupid line. You could have said this," which I've gotten before, and I just
Hmm.
figure, "Well, you're an idiot," and move on. But um, I mean, there are people out there that like to dissect poetry and try to decide what it
Mm.
means, and well, they could have said this better. And I personally see that as an insult to the person that wrote the poem. I mean, it's a poem. Poetry is a
Yeah.
very, this is the thought or the feeling that I had. I hope
Hmm.
it resonates. Thank you for reading, but don't rip my life apart. So whatever.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept because I've got two thoughts on what you just said. So the first thought is that really reminded me of being back at school and being presented with a piece of writing and being told that there are loads of hidden meanings and you've got to tear it to pieces and figure out what they're trying to say. And sometimes it's just a story. Sometimes somebody was just trying to get
Yeah.
something out there and they enjoyed it. The other thing is, I completely agree with you because if you have created something and you say it's finished, I'm finished with this, it's done, it's complete, I'm happy with it, and now I'm going to send it out into the world for people to hopefully enjoy or ignore whatever happens to it. When people then unprovoked become editors, it winds me up because that's not what the purpose of it is.
Mhm.
If you enjoy it, great, it was for you. If you didn't, it wasn't. That's it. There's so much out there that you could consume, and finding the energy to be like, okay, well, this didn't work and that didn't work. If the person didn't ask for it, it's just fucking rude. It's incredibly rude, and
Well said.
I've never understood it myself. I'm sure I'm going to get backlash. Some things I've been saying on these episodes, I'm thinking, oh, people are going to hate me for this, but you don't have to listen to me, so it's fine. You can go away. But
Exactly.
yeah,
Don't let the door hit you
yeah.
on the way out.
Yeah, and I'm a great believer in being kind to people. And there's a big difference between being constructive and being a dick. And there's also a big difference between please can you look over my work and tell me what I've done wrong, and I did this thing and I love it and I really hope you do too. Those two things are very, very different. So
Oh yeah.
um
Oh yeah.
yeah.
If I ask for
Um
criticism, then okay, I'm gonna take whatever crap comes my way. But
yeah.
I mean, I was raised by a man that criticized every half second of my life in the most
Mhm.
negative manner ever. So when I started putting my writing out there, initially it was very nerve wracking because I figured everyone was going to say you suck because that's how
Yeah.
I was raised. Everything you
Mhm.
do is stupid and it's going to suck. But the very few people that have said, "Bah, that's really great. That's amazing." Thank you very much to all of you out there, all 4 or 5 out there that have told me that. Um, but and that's the brilliant thing, and I've had to learn
Mhm.
over time that the the sort of the stoic manner of I can't control those people, I can't control their thoughts, I can only control what I do and what I say and how I react. So I
Yeah.
try very hard. I put my writing out there. I hope it resonates with someone since I focus a lot on mental health,
Mhm.
my mental health. Um, and if it doesn't resonate, then I hope that nobody criticizes me because I don't care.
Mess
But
Yes, that's the message.
pretty much.
Be nice or fuck off. No, I'm kidding. Am I? I don't know. I'm half serious.
That's a bumper sticker right there. Be nice or
Yeah.
fuck off. I like it.
I don't have time in this sphere of my already delicate mental health for you to be mean to me.
Exactly.
You're not
If my mother
invited.
were still alive, she would be like, "That's a bumper sticker for me right there." She would love that.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned mental health. So a
Mm.
lot of what I've seen from you in the virtual world and also in your writing, you do talk about mental health a lot, and you have a nice sort of protective message at the beginning of your latest release as well.
Mm.
Why is it important to you to be so vocal about any struggles that you might have or ones that you think other people might have?
Because mental health and mental health problems are real. And I think the world as a whole,
Hmm.
society, not the world, society, for years has just ignored it.
Hmm.
And, it's starting to sort of be okay to talk about it. I don't care if it's okay to talk about it or not.
Hmm.
I have issues. Lots of people have issues. Most people don't want to talk about it. Oh, I'm going to be
Hmm.
shunned. And I'm like, you know what? I don't care. I, um, I got issues. The writing is my therapy, but
Hmm.
yeah, I just think it's important to talk about so that others that maybe don't want to talk about it can be like, oh, well, there's this guy and he's got the same friggin' problems I do. I mean, and
Hmm.
I'm also big. I hate the labels that are put on mental health. I mean, I could list the
Hmm.
specific labels that I've been told throughout my life that I am or have or however that friggin' works.
Hmm.
Dissect my brain into 19 million parts and they each have a problem.
Hmm.
Um, okay, thank you. I just like to. I mean, bipolar is definitely one that is very specific and very problematic. Um, but they're all problematic.
Hmm.
Anxiety and depression, and it's that they're all problems. I just think it's important to talk about it. I think it's important to show that anybody at any age um, can have an issue. I don't think it's a male, female, older, younger. I think everybody has mental health issues one way or another,
Hmm.
and everybody should address it in themselves. Obviously, take care of yourself,
Hmm.
um, but don't be afraid to talk about it or joke about it or
Hmm.
tell somebody else I have that same problem. We could all come together. I think all of us, even the haters out there, you all have problems too. You're not admitting it. We all got issues. It's just important to
Yeah.
to talk about it.
I think being able to use a creative outlet that people can connect with is incredibly powerful because you have the opportunity to kind of talk directly to people's hearts, if you like, by presenting them with something fantastical that's rooted in something that's deeply personal to you. Because I've noticed that
Yeah.
some of your work, a chunk of your work, is the only word I can think of is fantastical, but it's kind of like the unbelievable or the amazing or whatever, and sort of bringing something that is potentially kind of normal and everyday and making it a bit more special. Um, yeah, I think it's a fun way of being able to introduce those things, and then in some of your poetry, it's just very raw or very very emotionally sort of heavy. Um,
That's me.
and yeah, but it's good. But it's good though because people have a choice whether or not to read it, right? So
Right.
you're not like forcing people to look at it or listen to it. If people read it and they don't like it, they don't have to keep reading it. Um, but yeah, I think it's a super helpful thing to do. And you mentioned like humor and adding in, joking about it. I'm a great believer in using comedy as healing,
Oh yeah.
which is another art form. So I think
Laughter is
people
great
would
medicine.
it is great medicine, and I
It
think
is.
also it's okay to poke fun of yourself, and it's okay to, have jokes about anything. I don't think anything is off limits. Um, However, you just have to pick your audience. So, um, do
That's
you
the hard part.
ever? It is the hard part, but thankfully, with things like the written word, people can start reading it and put it down, and they never have to look at it again. They're not.
Yeah.
Nobody's forcing you to look at it. When you're writing, especially things that are incredibly deeply personal, do you ever imagine someone reading it and think, okay, how are they going to take this? Or are you like, you're going to take me as I am, and if that's how it's going to be?
No, I used to. I used to be like, oh, people are gonna whatever, but I got rid of that skin really quick. Here's what I wrote, and I'm especially more and more in social media. I've been trying to communicate I'm raw and unapologetically myself.
Mm-hmm.
This is if you don't if you don't like it, you're not gonna like my reading or my
Mm-hmm.
writing. Excuse me. No, I think more so. I recently wrote something, a little short, kind of a flash fiction piece, really in response to a prompt that touched on um, my life growing up and my horrible father. And as I'm writing it, I'm thinking, I'm like, it's not so much of, oh, what are people going to think? It's just sort of like, this is going to freak people out. um, it's not, I mean, I've had discussions with people. They're like, oh, you got to put that into a book. I'm like, I don't know if I can put it all in a book because just drumming all that up is horrible. But
Mm,
um, in fragments, and if I can make it entertaining, which is very
mm,
interesting. Let's take some trauma,
mhm.
and then make it entertaining. Okay. So
It's
I
free
don't really worry
material.
about what people will think
Mhm,
more so than a, will they understand it, and I mean, I guess maybe sort of what will they think, but not in a I'm worried about the critique part of it. Just sort of
mhm,
is it going to resonate? Is it going to be entertaining for them?
mhm,
Is it a turn off? But I never get feedback. So, well, not never. I mean, a very small handful.
mhm,
Um, Somebody asked me once, "Well, why are you sharing if you don't want to share?" I said, "Well, you know, I think it's neat that I can share, and people from anywhere on this planet can read my stuff
mhm,
potentially." Um, but feedback is important, just like in
mhm,
business. Is it good? Is it bad? Um, I, and I seldom get that. I find it really annoying, but I just got to keep writing, and
mhm.
it's therapy. Put it out there. In 1,000 years, maybe somebody will give me feedback. Yay! Um, we'll see what happens.
So, do you ever think about how to word this? Do you ever have to make yourself uncomfortable to go through something in your writing? And what I mean by that is, if you're when you're talking about emotions or trauma or uncomfortable issues, do you ever sort of sit there and have to take a break and go, this is quite a lot for me to do? If you're using it as therapy, I just imagine there are there's got to be painful points.
Um, I've not so much anymore. I mean,
Mm,
early on, writing about something and remembering something, I would have to, shake my head or stick it in the sand or something and go a different direction for a few. But
mm,
now it's not too bad. I mean, I can remember the things that I remember for whatever reason if I'm writing it down, or even just trying to remember. I mean, I learned probably 20 years ago that I basically blocked my childhood mentally because I didn't want to
mm,
remember it anymore.
mm,
And I've been working to try and remember stuff. Both my parents are gone, so it's a little easier to try and dig that stuff up a little bit. And I write stuff down. There's a lot of stuff I haven't shared with people but forcing myself to just write or use parts of it for stories and whatever.
mm,
But I can pretty much be writing about it and process it and not be like, oh, I gotta take a cold shower. Eek.
mm,
I just go through it. I mean, I lived through it, so somehow, so writing about it isn't the same, even though the
mm,
memory comes up. It's painful memories, um, no, I don't know. I guess I don't have to walk away for a while anymore. I mean, it's kind of hard to walk away from myself. So, and
yeah.
trust me, I've tried. So, I can't really do that, but I don't really have to. It's just a memory. It's healthy for me to if I suddenly like, oh, I remember, and then I'll go through that memory, and my brain will actually just like right turn and go over there. But that would be
Mm,
probably the closest to what you're asking. Is this my brain
mm.
itself will just decide to take a left squirrel and go that way. Um, and then literally I'm on to that was really good coffee this morning, and that's it.
Mm.
So
Interesting. No, thank you. I know that that might have been a bit of an awkward question to answer, but it just came to my mind, and I thought, oh, I wonder if it is challenging. Um, because if I think of like traditional therapy, where you're, when you work through stuff and you have to think about, oh, why do I feel this way about this thing? Um, it can re-traumatize people. So I was just curious if that was an element for
I
your
always
work?
found traditional therapy, quote quote, traditional therapy, and I did that a lot as a younger in my younger days. I found it bullshit. It was just crap. It really was just stupid. But yeah, it was definitely. I mean, that's their job is to drill in to find that specific pain point and then pull it
Mm.
out with some rusty clippers and make it hurt. That's their job, and
Yeah.
it sucks. And I never found any satisfaction in it. I'm like, great, I
Hmm.
just paid you $100 so I can feel like crap all over again. Huh? That didn't help me at all. Whereas writing about it, I don't feel like that. It comes out in my own terms, and I feel much better about whatever it is I'm getting out.
Mm.
Um, a lot of my poetry is definitely reflecting, especially lately, is definitely reflecting on upbringing,
Mm.
my life as a child, and all that crap. And what's left over now, because
Mm.
that's the thing. I think I don't think people understand. The people that cause trauma in other people is that you're not just screwing that person up now; you're screwing them up for the rest of their life,
Yeah.
even if they fix stuff. I mean, I've think I've fixed some stuff pretty good, but
Hmm.
there's still a whole mess inside of me. So
Yeah.
you know, anyway,
Well, I'm glad that you have writing as an outlet for that because it's something that you can do at any
yes,
time and in any form, which is awesome. And also, it's technically free to write.
true.
Yeah,
Technically, how you
technically,
do it
sort
isn't
of.
necessarily free, but
Yeah, how you publish it isn't free. How you market it isn't necessarily free. Nothing is really free,
well, there's
but
publishing, there's marketing, there's
mm,
the this is more of the technical aspect, but I mean, it could just
mm,
be a pad and pencil and you write away. That's free because it's except you
mm,
had to buy those.
yeah,
But like me, I have a notepad that syncs across all my devices, so no matter where my brain and my fingers are, I can take notes.
that's cool as
And
shit.
everything's backed up and I don't worry
Yeah.
about it. Everything's encrypted end to end and I it's another little key piece to sleep soundly
Mhm.
at night.
What is it? Because I'm fascinated now. What is this space age notepad that you're reusing?
It's an app called was it really my brain just went I don't know what it's called. Um
That's fine.
yeah. It's an app called Standard Notes.
Okay.
That has end-to-end encryption.
Hmm.
You can keep it locally on your machine, but so I'm a Proton Mail user, and I have
Mm.
Proton Drive, which is like Google Drive, but I quit Google years ago because I got sick of them data mining
Hmm.
my stuff.
Hmm.
So I sync my notes to my end-to-end encrypted drive, and it
Hmm.
syncs across all my devices, which is a couple of laptops, phones, tablets, and a couple of big computers.
Hmm.
And so I've always got my stuff. It's everywhere, and it just makes me happier that it's synced and safe.
That's cool. Okay, well, I'm going to look into that because that's amazing. Um,
We can talk later.
yeah, that's fine. I mean, other people might find that helpful, so
Well,
we're keeping it
they
in there.
might.
If you're happy for me to keep it in there, obviously. Uh, okay, this is a like a coffee table magazine question. What's your favorite thing about being creative?
uh, the wow moment when whatever it is you're doing works,
Mm.
whatever that is. When I'm reading something back that I've written and my mind says, "Wow, that's really good." What I mean, what I think is good and what somebody else
Mhm.
might think is good, of course, is different, but they're subjective. But it's that moment or videos that you might create. I mean, little videos I was creating when Spectre first came out.
Mhm.
They were cheesy, but boy, that was just satisfying when they came out. It was just, I mean, and a couple of people like, oh, that's really good, excellent. That's the thing about creative. It's just, or someone sees a photo that you took and go, wow, that's beautiful. That
Mm.
kind of stuff. That's the part of the feedback too. But I still
Mhm.
consider that the wow moment of like, oh, that worked, or that looks really great,
Mhm.
or I'm getting goosebumps looking at it again. That's the part of being creative that I really like. No matter what it is, writing and I mean, I'm creative in many aspects. I just find it difficult in figuring out which one to share.
Mm. No, I get
But
that.
it's definitely that wow ooh moment for me.
So, do you? Wow, I've spoken English for my entire life, and I still struggle
Sure.
to this day. 30 years later, I'm still like, um. Do you equate those wow moments to your measure of success, or do you have goals? Are you just like, as long as one person reads it and they like it, or that one person even picks it up? What does it look like to you?
I suppose it's a matter of, I guess that goes into the, gosh, I wish I got feedback. Um,
Mm,
y- y- that to me would be the, did I reach someone? I
mm.
think in my writing would be the supposedly the measure of success. It certainly isn't sales. I mean, that would be nice, but that ain't
Oh my
it.
gosh, you and the rest
Um,
of the world
well, yeah,
writing things.
I'm preaching to all the indies out there. Like, what are
Mm,
sales? I mean, I'm the worst. Like I was telling you beforehand, in
mm,
business, I could sell anything.
mm,
It was just like breathing to me. It just wasn't a problem. Top sales here and there.
mm,
I got to sell a book that I wrote. Yeah, forget that. It's just too much. But that's a whole different thing.
yeah.
But I mean, as far as success, yeah, it's just does it reach someone? Do my words potentially help someone that's maybe going through or have gone through the same thing?
Mm,
That would be, to me, I think, that basically I connected with somebody else through my words. If that
mm,
happens, if I could find out about it, would be great. That would be really the success. If you never find out, then you just never know, and it never happened.
mm.
But I mean, it happened, but it didn't happen.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
um, yeah, yeah. But that's the critique of my brain. Like, dude, that's not right. I'm like, just go with it. It's all right. Um, but yeah, it's really just did I resonate? Did it connect with somebody? That potentially could it help somebody? Who knows?
Mm.
Um, that really, I think, is the measure of success for that. Do I have goals? No. I stopped having goals when I got out of business. It's a very weird position to be. Even with my writing, I don't have a specific goal other than I hope somebody enjoys in whatever way they enjoy or connect or with it. My writing.
Mhm.
That would be my goal, really. Is that and to do it every day. That was one thing I got from my newspaper editor teacher was write every day, make a
Mm.
routine, do it every day, whether it's 5 words or 1,000 words, write every
Mhm.
day. So I do that.
Cool. Um. So with being able to get your work in front of people, or to get that feedback, or to make that connection, there comes the difficulty of marketing, which is the when I did a little sort of poll on Twitter, and I'm going to keep calling it Twitter for the rest of my days. Um, the thing that
Fine.
indie writers specifically found the most challenging is marketing. Is that
Yeah.
something that do you concern yourself with it? Are you just like, I'm going to put it out on these platforms and it's going to find the right people? How do you feel about it?
I find marketing as an indie author very difficult. But I think it's more difficult. It's a little different. It is because I don't push myself into. I'm a horror writer, or I'm a sci-fi author, or I'm this or I'm that. I just write.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't decide. Like a lot of things, I can't decide on a specific genre to push myself into, which I think for
Mm-hmm.
me makes it harder to market because now I have a really hard time finding that specific audience to hit. I'm just really looking for anybody to read my stuff. um, so for me, that's where marketing is very tough. Finding the audience is tough because I'm I'm me, and I can't decide on a certain genre to just live in, and that's the only thing I'm going to write. That's impossible for my brain to accept. So for me, that's what I think makes marketing for me very difficult is that I don't have that. I don't have a specific audience that I'm trying to target, other than
Mm-hmm.
everybody on the planet that likes to read. That's my target.
Okay,
And
great.
that's very hard
Good
to
to know.
market too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's I so I tried to I watch other authors who do amazing stuff with their marketing. It's just and I try to copy and do that, but It's my psyche is that if it's too difficult for me in what I'm trying to
Mhm.
do, if I'm finding it very labor intensive, then it's not the right fit. And
Mm.
again, I don't have a dedicated audience I'm trying to communicate. I don't really know who my audience is. And I tried to put myself into a specific mold and it didn't work. So I'm accepting, much like in my own life, is that I'm not a specific mold. I'm me, I'm raw and very different. So I'm just going to go with that. And so with my
Mhm.
marketing, I've really just come down to I'm just going to interact and connect and engage on social media, which now is really just blue sky. Yay.
Mhm.
Um, and and hope I make connections and hope that people are curious enough to go to my link site, and then anything that I want someone to see is there. My latest
Mhm.
book, Spectre Noir, my Amazon author page for my other books that I've written,
Mhm.
very few, but I've written. That kind of stuff. It's out there. And that stuff changes as my brain says, no, 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 show them this, show them this. So that's where people can go to get everything. But that's for me is the hardest thing for marketing is that because I'm not in this specific place. I'm this kind of
Mm.
author, and that's it. That's a very it- and people out there don't hate me, but that's a very easy marketing thing in the sense that you
Mhm.
know who your audience is.
Well,
My
yeah.
audience is those who want to read and enjoy stuff. That's just a very
Mhm.
difficult audience to target.
It is because then people. Yeah, no, I agree with you because I was talking to a couple of authors last night when I was recording another episode, and they often use things like Reddit groups because they write like erotica or extreme horror, which in itself is a challenging thing to market because it's not
Mm,
widely accepted and it's difficult for people to feel comfortable seeing adverts for it basically. So
no,
I think everything has its challenges, and as you say, when you haven't got your sort of niche or your singular community to target, it does make it incredibly difficult because that's one of the sort of I was going to say pillars of marketing, as if I know what I'm talking about. But one of the sort of fundamental things that you have to consider when you're marketing something is like, who is my audience? And if your audience is everybody, you can't reach everybody. It's like
no,
impossible. So,
everybody and anybody. Yeah, yeah.
mm,
Well, that
mm,
is the key in marketing. I mean, again, I ran a successful business and for years, and but I knew our audience. I knew the
mm,
audience, and so what little advertising we did, because we really didn't have to, um,
mm,
was dead easy because it's what this is my audience,
mm,
easy. But again, for my writing, and I'm not set out to do this as a business; it's a hobby. If it
mm,
can somehow pay for itself, which there's not that many costs really, but
mm,
spend too much putting a book out, but whatever. The cover is awesome, so what the heck? But yeah, it's tough. I mean, like I said, when I don't have any specifics identified, I've just met.
mm.
I know people out there going, "Well, you're making it harder on yourself." Yes, I tend to do that. So um, it's just the shit. It's just the way it is for me. I can't help it. So
Mm.
the world's not challenging enough. I have to just shovel it deeper so I can really have a hard time. So whatever.
Why not? Glutton for
Why not?
punishment. Um, So you briefly touched on only using Blue Sky now, which has happened quite recently in terms of the date that we're recording this. Um, there are some elements of the challenges around social media and how kind of vapid it is, and how difficult it is to actually connect with people, and you're kind of losing that human connection. Um, so your general feeling of social media is it seems to be fairly negative, and I don't blame you at all. Um, but unfortunately, it's one of those necessary evils in this
Social media
day and
isn't
age.
really social. It's
No,
antisocial.
yeah,
I mean, number one, we're all hiding behind our screens, being social. So there's that aspect.
mm-hmm,
But then like on Twitter, for example, in recent
mm-hmm,
months, years, um,
mm-hmm,
it's just gotten more and more negative. and then really hard to, and more so than that. I mean, there's the stuff that we all know that's the problems with that platform. But
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion, connecting with real people, and I don't mean those sex bots; those aren't real people. But real authors, real, those the creatives, not just authors, but creatives in
Mm.
general. They're so hard to find because that platform in specific, and being a tech guy, I know, but there's so many scammers and non people accounts.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Blue Sky, which this is my second account, I actually closed my original account and then said, it's actually pretty decent now, and I don't really want to be on that one anymore. Um,
Mm-hmm.
is a lot better. They definitely have taken note and are paying attention, those behind it, and
Mm-hmm.
are paying attention to make it so that, and now I'm speaking in terms of creatives, but
Mm-hmm.
um, is much easier for us as creatives to connect with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And we always say, like, well, we're targeting readers. I'm like, aren't creatives, aren't other writers readers as well? I mean, we're all targeting each other, really,
Mm-hmm.
in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, social media has always been, and especially if you deal with, if anybody, but I mean, if anybody deals with anxiety and depression specifically, throw a little bipolar in there for a little salt and pepper. But um, social media, no matter the platform, will just destroy you,
Mm.
because there's so much, you're not right because you're doing this, or there's just so much negativity in so many directions. It's very
Mm-hmm.
difficult. um, that's why I don't have any social media apps on my phone at all. um, I mean, once in a while I put IG back on there just to post a picture, but then it comes right
Mm-hmm.
off.
Yeah.
So I find social media very challenging, no matter the platform.
Mm.
But I do really like what's happening over on Blue Sky much better than I've liked any other platform.
It certainly seems to be more of a welcoming place, and as you say, they seem to have done a better job of stopping the robotic scammers from appearing. I still have had already scam DMs and they just get blocked immediately. But something that I found really
Yeah.
challenging with putting this project together, so both the site Indiosyncrasy, which releases in January, and the podcast, is that I've had the best success with not contacting people. I've waited for them to come to me, which is an
Mm.
exercise in patience, but it also helps for other people to feel comfortable that I'm a real person, because it's so difficult, which is part of the problem. It's so difficult to tell when someone's being genuine on when you're not seeing their facial expressions or their body
Yep.
movement or
Yep.
the inflection in their voice. Um yeah, it's fascinating. To me, Twitter feels like there's this really comfortable, fun side where there are creative people and they really want to be part of the community, because all of this is based on my interactions with people on Twitter. So I
Mm.
have to thank it for that in terms of being able to connect with the human beings, which was tough to wade through. And then the
Mm.
other half of it is this really uncomfortable, predatory place where you could be a target for anything, and it's not it. You have to be really fucking careful, is what I'm trying to say. And
Yeah.
when I first opened my account in, I think it was November 2023, I think, not that long ago, one of the first things that happened to me was I kept getting these emails, and I thought, people are noticing me already, because I didn't know what they were. And I was like, oh my
Right.
gosh, people
Exactly.
know me. No, they don't. They don't give a shit
No.
about you. They're part of some friggin' scam. And it's, oh, I hate it. But I've had very little of that on Blue Sky. But I was talking to my cousin, who is very good at social media, and by that I mean I think she does it as a job. So that's what I mean by very good,
Yeah.
just like a career. Um,
She has to be
and
good.
it was really, she is very good. I will give her that. I'm not going to tell you her name, but she's she's excellent.
All right.
And what I find fascinating is the different types of people that you get on the different platforms, and the we were talking
Mhm.
about like strategy and how you get things seen and what the algorithms are like, and they're all so complicated. You have to be a different person and present yourself in a completely different way on each platform, and it's
Yep.
absolutely wild to me. And at that point, because
Yeah,
you're having to bend and shape yourself to each of those platforms to fit into whatever mold they have. You're not actually being yourself. And that's kind of
exactly,
the sadness of it. So I'm hoping that by
exactly.
having these conversations, doing these podcasts, creating these author features for people on the website, and hopefully in the future doing like Q&As, maybe doing articles and things like that, we can start to get to know the real people, and that is
Yes.
the key to the success of this endeavor, I think, because I've read things, and I say this every episode, and I'm sure it's going to become my catchphrase, or somebody's going to do a friggin' collection of me saying this and making fun of me. One of the things that I've found most fascinating is I've read things that I never would have looked at before because I've gotten to know the people. And that's such a
Yeah.
struggle using social media because you can't get to know that person very well. And the best thing you can do is
No.
read their work and remember there's a human at the other end of it. Um,
Exactly.
so yeah, it's
Ding, ding,
fascinating,
ding, ding,
really.
ding, ding.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
One
that's
can
the thing.
hope
Like,
that this
I
will
don't
work.
conform to what society says I should be and how I should all that crap. I hate those things. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, society says you should be a kind person. I'm like, well, I don't know any other way to be but kind. But
Yeah.
society says you shouldn't be a dick, but apparently people didn't get that memo. So, I
Oh
don't like
yeah.
the certain rules and things, and social media just, like you said, you end up not being who you are to try to get whatever message it is that you're trying to do,
Mm-hmm.
which is terrible. That's why I look at social media as antisocial, because it's not social. That's a joke.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it might have started out that way, but it has nothing to do with being social. It has everything to do with
Mm.
squeezing that square peg into a round hole so that you can make a buck.
This
That's
is
it.
it, and I think it's becoming more and more clear when people have an ulterior motive to what they're doing. Um,
Mm.
and sometimes I am a victim of victim, not really, of doom scrolling. Um, because I'm like, okay, let me just I'll be doing something, and my hand becomes possessed, and I start picking up my phone, and then I open an app, and then I'm scrolling with one thumb and trying to do something else with the other hand, and then eventually that thing stops happening, and I just become stuck in this
It's
horrible
not your
void.
thumb, it's your brain. It's that
It's
drug.
horrible. Oh, it makes me so
Uh,
angry with myself. And then I'll delete everything and I go, oh my God, I can live again. And then I go, oh, I've got this really funny thing I want to say. Let me just download Twitter again. And it's just this perpetual cycle. And at one point, in my past, I was having a really, really difficult time mentally, and I developed a drinking problem, and I was just having a really shit
mm,
time.
been
And
there.
I found myself masking the problem by looking at social media and just immersing myself in these
Mm,
pretend worlds that people had, and it was only making my problem worse because I was like, oh, everybody else is having such a great time and I'm having a shit time, and nobody posts that they're having a shit time. And what I did was I got rid of my iPhone and I got a Nokia 3310, and that was the key to me getting better. And it was the wildest thing. I deleted all my social media. I got one of those black and white phones that I used to have when I was a kid. I
oh,
used to
there you
play
go.
Snake, and that is the extent of it. Um, so if you're having a horrible time, just get a Nokia 3310 because they are the business. The old ones, not the new ones. You want the black and white 8-bit
Yeah.
screen or 16-bit screen or whatever it is.
Just
Um,
get rid of your cell phone. There's no reason to. I mean,
throw it
I
in a
like
lake.
like for me, I just delete all my social media from my phone.
Mm-hmm.
My
Yeah.
phone is. I have games on my phone because it's my other gaming
Mm-hmm.
system, and my
Mm-hmm.
notes and my email, because, well, that's that. But I'm not
Mm-hmm.
in business anymore, so nobody gets a hold of me, so it's great. And I don't really know real people anymore, so nobody calls me, so it's not really a phone. Um, and I only do
It's a gaming
social,
device.
and primarily, I mean, most of my social, like I said, once in a while for Instagram because I want to post a specific picture or something, but
Mm-hmm.
um, or there's a few people that I converse with on Instagram, so through the
Yeah.
app is better. But
Mm-hmm.
I do. Otherwise, it's all on my laptop. I refuse
Mm-hmm.
to have that crap on my phone. Um, it just, yeah, it's just bad. So, and like you were just saying, like, nobody posts a shitty day on Insta or on social media. Of course not, because
Mm-hmm.
shitty days don't sell.
Yeah. Although people love trauma, but you have to dress it up for them to make it
What's the
digestible.
thing? Therefore, it's no longer
Mm.
real. So,
Hmm.
trauma is not
That's
pretty,
why I.
people.
It's really not. That's why I post stuff like a close up of my creepy face and telling people to be fucking nice to themselves, because that's all I've
I
got.
love those
That's all I've
pictures.
got. Oh, good. I'm glad.
I love
I'm
those.
hoping to create a movement of people just being little creeps.
We need to do a short film of just your face popping up every so often with like,
Oh
psychotic
yeah.
poetry in between or something. I don't know.
Oh,
I just gave away
I'm
a
not
free idea.
opposed to
You're
the
welcome.
idea. Well, there's evidence. It
Let's
was your
work on that
idea.
later. Let's work on that.
Okay, let's do it. Yeah. um. So I think I've asked all the questions that I was going to ask. I'm going to cut this bit out, by the way, or maybe I'll leave it in. I don't know. Maybe people need to see how the sausage is made.
Sorry.
But I say
12-year-old
that
brain just
every
giggled.
day. I say that every day, and I don't know why I get stuck
Maybe
on these phrases. And what was the? Well, I got stuck on a word the other day. Bolster. Couldn't stop saying
bolster.
it. I had to fit it into every word. So to
I
you
like
know when you.
crack on. I like that one.
Oh yeah, you got to crack on with it. Get on
Crack
with
on.
it.
There you go. I
It's
like that. I got to
yes,
bring
my
some of that over here to good old America.
yeah. I mean, I am in America, but I'm so wildly misunderstood because I'll say something and my husband is like, "That's got to be a joke," and I say, "Is it? Are you gonna Google it? Because it sounds like nonsense." And he always believes me, but with like this immense skepticism, and I always get the
Oh
side eye,
yeah.
and he's like, "You could lie to me, and I just have no idea." And I'm like, "It's just the Queen's English. I can't help it." I come
Exactly.
from the southeast of England, which is a mix of like London and the Southerners. So I'm like half posh, half really common. And common is like a
Posh.
word
I
for
love that one. Yeah.
I don't know, the average person, I suppose. But I
Years ago, I used to work
random
with
shit.
an office that was in Melbourne, Australia, and
Mm.
I really miss those coworkers because I could listen to them all day long. I'm like, you could tell me anything, just talk in your native, how you guys talk in your native, how you guys talk, and I'm happy. Um, just love it. So,
Oh, I love the Australian accent. It's fantastic. I remember
mm.
being this is a little anecdote for you guys. I don't know if anybody finds this interesting. I just thought it was funny. I had this really horrible health thing happen, and I went to a hospital. It was like the accident and emergency center of the
Oh no,
hospital I was born in. Okay, it's okay. You don't have to feel sorry for me. This was funny.
no,
So it was. I was born in that hospital. I was born in England,
oh,
and I have this. I have weird twangs to my accent that have like I don't know, like Canadian inflections and Australian inflections, and people will keep asking me where the hell I'm from because I watched a lot of Friends when I was growing up. That's the only explanation I have. And the doctor, with my chart and my notes, asked me if I was Australian, and it's the strangest thing because I was sat there, I was like, I was screaming in this hospital 20 odd years ago,
oh,
and
maybe
yeah,
he
anyway,
was too.
maybe he was too. I mean, I'm always screaming. So before I yammer on about anything else that's strange and irrelevant, um, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about?
Um, can't really. I think we hit on some good points. I hope we hit on something or things interesting to the millions of people that are going to hear this and watch it.
It's going to be
um,
5 people. One of them will be my grandma.
yeah, well, maybe one or two people. Well, one person I actually know might watch it. Who knows? Um, yeah. I mean, if people want to know more about me or look at my stuff,
Mhm.
just go to mrericmontgomery.com, which is MR and then ERICMONTGOMERY.com. And all my links are always there.
Excellent. I will put the link to your website on the description of the episode as well. And
Awesome.
by January, you'll also have your author page on
Ooh.
indiosyncrasy.com, and I will put a link to that later because it will not be released by the time this episode comes out.
All right.
But thank you so much for joining me today. It was a lot of fun, and it was very exciting to talk about your creative process and your motivations. And it's always interesting to hear people's experiences with writing and how they conduct themselves in that world because everybody's so different. And I'm hoping that someone out there will listen to this and feel connected to you and why you write, and hopefully they'll be able to enjoy your work as well. So yeah, thanks again.
Well, thank you. This has been fun. I hope this maybe leads to a plethora of podcast interviews. I tell myself as I
Available to
walk down
book
the
now.
street. Yeah, well, hey, why not? I mean, I'm like turn the lights off and I'm hiding away and I'm done
Hmm.
doing that. I need to not for book exposure like
Hmm.
any other indie author. I really just want to, and this is going to sound funny, but it's time to expose myself to the world. Take that as you
And for
will.
those who are just listening to this on Spotify or Apple, it's everybody is clothed.
You never know. Oh, I mean, in this podcast, yes, everybody is clothed. I
Yes,
didn't mean it
yes.
like clothing, but that's the frightening thing of social media. You don't know if that person is really wearing pants or not. But yes, no, it's but just the I've hidden away from the world for a number of years now, and
Mm,
after my world and business was done, and I'm like, oh, I just gotta stay and dealing with some life issues and shit, but
mm.
life is different now, and it's very lonely without people. So I'm
Yeah.
looking for
Well,
people because I can handle being a little bit peoply, not much, but a little bit.
yeah,
Anyway,
smidge peoply. Well, I'm glad that this was the first podcast interview that you've had. I've had a great time, and yeah, I look forward
yeah, this
to
is fun.
maybe another episode in the future where we talk about what happened after you hit the big time after this episode is released.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's follow up with my stardom as it grows.
Sounds good.